Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, we're hanging out in Richmond, Canada, just south of Vancouver. It's a beautiful night, and we're checking out the Spark Bikes Blade. This is one of my favorite, I don't know, kind of like mini bike style e-bikes. It all started with Super 73 as far as what I was aware of, and they kind of had their cool looking bike, and they were talking about how it's all retro, and instead of using gasoline, which is kind of loud and smelly and stuff, they've got electric. And it's the same premise here, but I just love the attention to detail and the price point on this. So the Blade, it's a new model for 2019. It only costs $16.99 US, $19.99 Canadian, and that's with free shipping if it's like the contiguous US or sort of the North America market if you're in Canada. It comes in like 3 different colors. I think, yeah, it's 3. It's like matte black, glossy red, or glossy silver. Their branding is kind of fun, pretty minimal, and you've got that semi-integrated down tube battery. But check it out, we've got these plastic fenders. These are like 110 millimeters wide. They do a really good job of keeping you dry and clean with these sort of like off-road capable Kenda Crusade tires. They do have puncture protection and reflective sidewall stripes, so I'm a big safety nut. I'm always calling that out. They've got a 70 lux custom headlight right here. Points where you steer. It is mounted to the arch of the fork, so if that's bouncing up and down, the light's going to bounce a little bit. It'd be nice if it was up here or something, but this is pretty typical for e-bikes with headlights like that. It is wired in, so it runs off of that battery pack, 48 volt, 17 amp hours. That's a lot of juice right there. 9.1 pounds for that battery pack. And then in the rear, we've got a Lineo by Spaninga. This is a light I see frequently. It has 2 LEDs, so it's a little bit brighter. It's got a large reflective surface, and you can even see out from the sides a little bit, so I feel like it's one of the better lights on the market. And it's nice to see that on what is essentially like an online-only kind of a value type of bike. Yeah, you're paying a little bit more. There are cheaper ones out there. I reviewed one from AdMotor a while back that's also similar to this, kind of the mini bike style. But again, I feel like this one is just, it's done really well. You've even got a suspension fork up here. I measured it roughly 60 millimeters of travel. It's a fat bike specific, so it's a little bit wider, 135 millimeter hub spacing in the front versus 100 millimeters on a traditional bike. So this is fat bike specific. Same thing back here with the rear wheel. This is like a 175 millimeter dropout, and that's because it's got a 7-speed cassette, 11 to 32 teeth. This is DNC. It's nickel plated, so it's going to hold up a little bit better and maybe not rust and just, you know, handle the extra pedal force, which doesn't necessarily have to be a lot on a bike like this. We've got a 500 watt nominal, 750 watt peak Bafang. I think it's like 80 Newton meter torque rated, and it's fat bike specific. Again, with thicker 13 gauge spokes, nice black coating on those. Same thing with the rims. The rims could be punched out to save a little bit of weight. That's one area of possible improvement. This bike is like 65.8 or 9 pounds, so it's, you know, it is heavier, and part of that's because of the heavy duty motor and then the battery pack and the extra tubing and stuff. So again, you know, $16.99, you're staying under that $2,000 mark, but for me, the affordable category on the website is anything $1,500 and below. So we're just above that, and they don't have any different sizes, but you do have this, what I call like a high-rise handlebar that can be tipped forward or brought back, and you got this long like banana saddle here, banana seat, I guess. That's what we used to call them with our regular bicycles. So you can actually position your body here if you're someone with shorter reach, you want to be upright, or you can slide way back here and kind of like, you know, lay things out if you're a taller rider. The thing is, you're not necessarily going to get the full pedal stroke, you know, your leg extension. I find myself, I'm kind of like squatting a little bit, and I tend to be, you know, spreading my legs a bit kind of wide because the saddle is wide. It's tapered in a bit at the nose right there, but the tubing is not. So just coming back to weight, like I think that the saddle adds a little bit of weight, the extra tubing. I like these black, I don't know, they're just plates, I guess, to kind of keep you, they make it look cool, but nothing's really happening back here. It felt like maybe they could have put some bottle cages or something with this spot. Maybe you could make something for yourself. It does protect the controller box, and I believe this is like 24 amp controller. It's like a very powerful, peppy feel on this bike. Part of that's because the hub motor gets a mechanical advantage with those smaller diameter wheels. So these are 20 by 4-inch wide. They are fat tires, and they're rated from like 5 to 20 psi. So you really can take this into softer terrain, like whether it's snow or sand or just mulch, kind of loamy terrain, and that increased surface area is just going to kind of spread out, especially with lower tire pressure, and it's actually going to keep you above and kind of in control versus sinking in and sliding out, which is what happens with skinnier tires, especially in sand. So this thing it's kind of like an all-terrain, like awesome fun machine is how I see it. And I love that, you know, if you do go off-road, you've got this Z chain. This is rust resistant. They've got a nice chain guide up here on the 52 tooth chain ring, so the chain's not going to bounce off as easily as it might on some other bikes. You've even got this steel derailleur guard protecting your derailleur if the bike tips over, if you fall off or something. And that's good because we do have the motor power cable and the shifter cable right here. That's the sensitive part of the bike. That's the drivetrain side. So I feel like they've done everything they could to just bolster this thing and make it tough. And that's great too, because they ship these. So this could be in the box, like tipping around, you know, if UPS or FedEx or something. And it's just nice that feels like really sturdy. So if you go off-road or if you need to ship this thing, it's going to be pretty well protected. Same thing, the light sticks out a little bit, but because the wheel sticks out so much further, it all feels pretty good, pretty solid. I love that they've got a kickstand and that kickstand is mounted far enough back that you're not going to create pedal lock. It's adjustable, but it's in kind of a high position right here, so I'm just using that rock. 40 millimeter tab. You could always add your own kickstand if you have a different preference later. A nice cable wrapping job here. We do have some quick disconnects, so you can add replacement parts in the future if something goes wrong. Spark Bikes has been around, I think since like 2017. So, you know, they're fairly well established, and it's a brand a lot of people have been excited about, especially in Canada, because it's, you know, one of just a handful of brands, but they do sell in the US as well. And so that's exciting for me. And, you know, I kind of picked the red one here because it's so bright and fun looking, and that's kind of the Canadian colors. We've got hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors front and rear, which is almost like overkill for such a small wheel. So you keep hearing that theme, like smaller wheels. That brings the standover height a little bit lower. It makes the wheels sturdier. So this bike is rated up to 300 pounds. So if you're a heavier rider, should have no problem. I can imagine, you know, brother and sister or something, like maybe a couple friends doubling up here on the seat if you needed to use this to get around town. And it performs almost like a little scooter because it has that trigger throttle, but there is pedal assist. And we've got this nice sealed cadence sensor down there, 12 magnets, standard 170 millimeter long cranks. So pedaling on it feels like a traditional bike. It's just that the width up here that I talked about, and then maybe the leg extension. So if you're someone with longer legs like me, I want to like raise the saddle so I get better leg extension, but I can't. All I can do is slide myself forward and back. And again, the comfort thing, smaller wheels have a lower, actually it's a higher attack angle. That's what it is. So, you know, the wheel isn't quite as large. A large wheel spans things and it kind of rolls smoothly, versus a small wheel like kind of falls into things and bangs up against things. But because they're these big 4-inch fat tires, and because you got that suspension fork, which by the way has hydraulic lockout and also has preload adjust, which means you can kind of preload the spring a little bit if you're heavier so it's not bouncy. Just, you know, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good setup, especially for the price. And then that stopping power, because of the weight here, having those hydraulic disc brakes, they're not going to stretch over time. They have adjustable reach, that little screw right there, so you can kind of bring them in a little bit and change this depending on your hand size. And they both have motor inhibitors. So it's like you get good stopping power and you also have control of the drive system. The motor, as powerful as it is, it's not going to go out of control. If you hit those brakes, immediately it cuts off the power. And we got the display right here, adjustable angle, not removable. It's grayscale. It's pretty easy to see, and it's pretty well protected in that, like, you know, what I call kind of like the high-rise bars. Easy to reach these button pads and this trigger throttle over here. And on the battery pack itself, there's even like a little USB charging port. So there's nothing up here, but there is a USB here. And sometimes on Amazon they have these like right angle adapters, so you could run some wires up if you wanted to mount your phone. I'm not sure where you would do that, but it's just nice to have that. Some people like take their bike to the park and then, you know, take the battery off and you've got like backup power. So here are the keys. They do not have to be left in when you're riding, but I didn't want to forget them. We'll pull the battery off. Again, 1.9 pounds on this thing, pretty high capacity. It's just, you know, standard design. I've seen a lot of these battery types. I think it's like fairly affordable, but also kind of good looking and good weight distribution. So I'm trying really hard with one hand here. There we go. Clicks in, take the keys out. And the one complaint I have is the charging port. So see, it's right there, which is in the path of the left crank arm. So if you're plugged in, you accidentally bump those pedals, it could kind of bend or almost break the tip, which we can see right here. Might not break the tip, it might break like the internals of the battery itself, which, you know, could be kind of expensive. This is not like abnormal. There are a lot of electric bikes that have the charging port there. I'm just telling you guys to be careful, and you could take that battery off the bike and charge it separately, which would be a really good way to store the battery, is like cool, dry location. Try to keep it charged. Go between 20% and 80% for the longest lifespan of the battery, because those cells get kind of stressed if you're at the extremes, and hot. Hot is really hard on lithium-ion batteries, so a lot of people bring it into their office and charge during the day, or maybe store it in a utility room or something like that. Those are some tips. This is 1.6 pounds, 3 amp charger, whereas a lot of e-bike chargers are only 2 amps. So that's another little upgrade. Remember when we started this and I was like, yeah, you know, there's what are those guys? Super 73 and Ad Motor, and like a lot of companies have come out with these just because they're fun and they are eye-catching. But I feel like Spark Bikes has done the best so far for the price, from what I've seen. That's just my opinion. I think the other companies are, you know, maybe they're offering like different value to price type of thing. But for me, to have lights, to have a high capacity battery, powerful motor, good customer support. I mean, these guys are really trying, I can tell. And to me, that gets a thumbs up. I really don't have too much to complain about here. I've done all that I could to measure the width, the length, the height, all these different things. You know, nice risers here, or spacers, and then the handlebar choice I think is really good. This bike feels comfortable, and I was talking with folks at the company, and the guy was like, oh yeah, that's my favorite bike. I ride that one the most because I think it's like fun. It's kind of like a little scooter. It's not the most active bike because the whole pedaling situation, like you're not going to be on this spinning all the time. You could, but it'd just feel a little awkward unless you were just the perfect height or something. But even for me, it's just been a fun ride, and I went up the hill earlier and stuff, and it climbed really well because of that mechanical advantage on the motor. So anyway, let's get down to it. The battery's mounted, it's charged up. We want to turn this thing on. We just press the power button over here for a couple seconds. It comes to life. We've got speed up at the top, charge level, which is 5 little ticks on that infographic. Each tick represents 20% step, but look, they even have percentage. I love that, much more precise. And that's good because, you know, 65, 66 pound bike, pedaling this home, especially, that would be a bummer. You don't want to run out. So it's much better like lower the assist level and limp home rather than going all the way to 0 with that throttle. It starts out in pedal assist level 1. The throttle is active, so be careful, because if you turn it on before you hop on and you bump that, this bike will take off. You can click the minus key and go down to 0, and then, you know, the throttle is non-functional. So that's kind of a safety thing. I sometimes like it when you can just use the throttle, but at assist level 0, or 1, it's actually not, you know, it's kind of a gentle assist level, and it gives you full throttle power in any of those assist levels. Also, right now it's set at 5 levels of assist, but you can actually change it to be 3, 5, or 9. So some of the other Spark bikes I reviewed, like the Spark Mini, it uses basically the same setup, same motor, battery, wheels, and everything. It's a folding fat tire bike, whereas this is like a mini bike, you know? Maybe it comes down to style. This one's going to be a little bit more stiff. It just feels a little bit more solid because it's not folding. So coming back to, you know, what your preference is, I think this one's like $100 more than that one. Okay, so here we are in assist level 0. I can click the plus button and get all the way up to 5 if I want to. That's going to be the fastest responding, most powerful. And then down here we've got trip distance. If I press the power key for a second, we change from, I guess it goes to average speed instead of current speed, and then, let's see, max speed, and then it goes, I guess if you wait for a second, it goes back to current speed. Yeah, there we go. Interesting. And then if I press it again, there we go. Now we get odometer down here and time down there. So trip is the default. But that's interesting. They switch back if you wait for just a second. I haven't noticed that before. I think you can hold the minus key and, whoa, oh boy. Walk mode, there it is. Make sure to use 2 hands. And then the headlights, if you hold the plus key, see it does backlighting on the display. And you get the headlights, super bright. Again, 70 lux on that thing. and then the rear light, which you can really start to see because it's like the evening time here. And I think if we hold, maybe is it double tap? Yeah, double tap, and it gets us into the display settings. And I think they've got some information back at the website. It's like top speed, backlight brightness 3, take it all the way up to 5, so it's getting brighter for us. And wheel diameter 20 inches, voltage, battery voltage 48. It's basically all set up, and then there's a password. So I think you can lower the top speed on this if you wanted to. I'm not completely sure. That's something you'd want to check with, but that could be nice if you have someone who's a bit older, or maybe some kids or something like that, where you want it to be extra safe for them. And I do, as far as safety, want to call out this cool, like, futuristic bell here on the right. Sounds really nice. Ergonomic grips, stitched. They are not locking, which means if you really bear down, you can like twist them. Not the end of the world, but that is a bit of probably a price cost savings kind of a choice there, but they do feel pretty comfortable. And then these nice pedals, how did I forget these? These are the Welgo aluminum alloy, fixed pins, extra wide, so if someone has bigger feet, these work great, and they don't get broken up like plastic ones or crushed like the cage style ones. These are like excellent choice. That would be my first choice actually, especially on a bike like this. So I think that's it. I'm gonna hop on this thing. I'm gonna do pedal assist so you can see how quickly it responds. Here we go. Let's see. And I'm in assist level 5.
Interesting e-bike.
Hey, we're getting taunted, guys. We're getting taunted by someone who's in Canada, nonetheless, who's in like a spandex. That was awesome. That's my first time. So here we go. So you can see at like the lower levels of pedal assist, there's a bit of a delay, or not the lower speeds, right? When you're starting off at a slower speed, it takes a minute for the sensor to register like, oh, okay, they're pedaling. So let's do this one more time. Yeah, so I feel like it's like a half a pedal rotation, but I love that the sensor is sealed. It's well protected down there. It's kind of the standard now. And glad that they're not cheaping out on that. And then we have the trigger throttle, which you can be really gentle with this thing, right? And just kind of ease your way through. This thing's having no problem with the grass. Just a beautiful day in the park. And then if I really juice it, oh boy, here's the no hand shot. It's actually doing pretty well. Feels pretty stable because of those bigger, like extra wide fat tires. And then the cushion of that suspension fork and stuff. I'm always doing this stuff one-handed, just hanging on for dear life, looking out for those guys in spandex. That was awesome. There we go. We're up to roughly, there it is, 32 kilometers per hour. Howdy. He is not having it. And then here is a little hill climbing test, right? Save the best for last. So I'm on the slant right now. You know, it's not the world's steepest hill, but it's definitely a climb, and I'm just gonna juice it. No problem. Yeah, right. So that's the power of like a hub motor and a smaller wheel. Then again, I only weigh like 135 pounds. My inseam is like 30 or 31, and you'll see like I'm positioned further back on the saddle so that my reach feels comfortable, and really so my feet do. If I was way up here, you know, I can be much more upright. Feels a little bit awkward, so I find myself sliding kind of to the middle of that banana seat. Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm just gonna do it one more time. Yeah, very good, you guys. Okay guys, I wanted to do a little like off-road riding, and I can't do that with like one hand on the camera. So I'm gonna go off the curb a little bit, and then I'm gonna go over this little mound, and just you'll get a view of what this thing looks like when I'm riding it. Okay. That's awesome. That first time I like got a wheelie going on this thing. It's really like high torque. And this is just the perfect, I'm gonna do that one more time and maybe try to, I don't wanna, you know, we're in a park, so I'm trying to be safe for all the like kids and stuff. But yeah, let's do this. Man, I know I could get this thing like even more airborne, but I'm a little bit like spooked. It's a brand new bike and everything. So anyway, I just had fun with that. That was cool. I think that's about it. Thank you for joining me on this little adventure in Canada. And for the Spark bikes, that's the Blade. For the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Got all the measurements and specs and stuff. Chime in if you've bought this or you've had experience with Spark bikes. I always appreciate your feedback, and I'm always on like brand new bikes doing my best to provide insights, but I really do feel like these guys have done a good job. And I want to call out, you know, they don't have the two-way high shifter. You can't push it, you just pull it, but they do have the multi-shift low, so you got, you know, 3 steps, and that feels pretty good. It's nice to be able to shift through the gears really fast, and, you know, again, these brakes and stuff, it's a good setup. They've done a good job. So anyway, love you guys, ride safe, we'll see you next time.